Good afternoon. Welcome to the Building and Grounds Committee meeting. Today is Monday, February 12th, 2024. The time is approximately 4:34 p.m. We have agenda before us. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the agenda for the Frederick County Public Schools Building and Grounds Committee meeting for February 12th.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have an agenda. All right, Dr. Hummer.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Chair. We have 5 items for you this afternoon that we are going to talk through. Of these 5 items, 2 of them we are asking to go before the full board for consideration for approval. First, we're going to go through the capital projects list. As you all know, we like to go through those items, provide you updates with our current projects, answer any questions that you might have, as well as discuss any future projects that we're going to be starting on. We have the Frederick water easements. I think we have everybody in attendance today, so we're able to move forward with that. That is one of the items that will need to go before the full board for approval. We also would like to have a running item of giving you all updates of Indian Hollow as well as James Wood High School, so we're going to be providing you with updates there. And then we also have a treat for you all. We want to talk through the bid process. We've had a lot of questions in regards to the different types of bid processes that are available for a school system to take into consideration. This is going to be very thorough. We want to make sure that we answer any questions, and we're also hopeful that we will be going through this process very soon. So want to make sure that we're able to answer those questions as we work through that. And then the last item, which will need to go to the full board for approval, is the Weapons Detection System Pilot Program. So we want to provide you with some updated information there, and we would like for that to go to the full board for approval. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'm now going to hand it over to Mr. Goodwin to go forward with these items. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Dr. Hummer, and everyone that's here tonight. Thank you. Look forward to spending time with you. I'd like to welcome, if I can, please, Mr. Davis, Facility Services Director, to walk us through our capital projects that he has going on at this time.
Good evening, Dr. Hummer, Chair, board members. How are you guys?
Great.
We'll start off by the transportation HVAC near complete punch list includes the following. This job is now complete. We just have to do final testing out there and then get the final invoice through. So that job's now complete with a little bit of testing. Should all be wrapped up by the end of February, mid-February, end of February. Millbrook roof membrane, 253,000 square feet is complete. The note where it says approximately 320 linear feet of sky roof, that sky roof is now complete as of today. So that's done. We just need to install the 20 clear pyramids in the intersections of the hallways. So we're working on that. I think they started that early today, but stopped due to the weather. Still anticipate completing this mid-February. Another week or 2, we should be done out there. And then we'll get the roof warranties on that. So that one's coming along pretty good. Fire alarm project for Apple Pie Elementary and Dow J. Howard. They're in the engineering phase right now. I do know that Apple Pie will be out of engineering by April 15th and Dow J by March 1. So we'll be able to cut contracts on those as soon as we get the engineering done. We'll cut contracts we'll start bidding it out so we can cut the contracts for that. So Sharando High School interior painting, we started that one earlier this month. That will be done May of 2024. A couple pictures for that. NREP asphalt resurfaced the track. That has also been completed. I got a picture for that. So I like pictures so you guys can kind of see what we're talking about. A little easier. So you can see the sky roof at Millbrook. That has brightened up that hallway tremendously there. I mean that's an awesome job. The parking lot at NREP. They paved it. They just line striped it earlier this month. Basketball, track, couple little things there that we can do there. So interior painting at Sharando. Should have done better, a little comparison shot, but these are finished hallways with the black door frames and the I guess the color on the wall. So things are moving pretty good in facilities out there. You guys got any questions?
You guys didn't take the panel with the handprints from the class of 2000 down, did you? Is that still up
Is
there?
that yours?
It is. It is.
That one was absolutely left up there.
Fantastic. Glad to hear it. Glad to hear it.
Yeah, no, things are moving pretty good. More updates as we keep going. So,
Mr. Davis.
yeah, sure.
Question for Millbrook.
Okay.
The roof, the skylights over there. On the past skylights, the issue was that we had a lot of mildew and things growing up there. what kind of preventive maintenance plans are we looking at so that we still have the longevity for those skylights? Because they are beautiful.
Yeah.
And they are bringing in a lot of light for that space. Do they have a manufacturer's recommendation for that? What's our schedule look like for keeping those clean?
We'll put a cleaning schedule together as any other skylight. I do know there's a warranty for 10 years for delamination, color change, and things like that on there as well that we'll adhere to. And we don't have it in play, but we will have it in play by the end of this project, and warranty is set to clean them and maintain them.
Good deal. Look forward to seeing that.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll put something together for you.
Appreciate it.
Sure. Anything else? All right, great. Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Next to the podium, I have Mr. Lee, who's coming up, and Mr. Lee has some guests from Frederick Water with him tonight that I know he'll turn over the program to in just a moment. So thank you, Mr. Lee, for coming up and leading us off on this conversation.
Certainly. Mr. Chairman, Madam Committee Member, good afternoon. We do have someone from Frederick Water here with us today to talk to you all about this project, and so I thought I'd just give a very brief introduction. What Frederick Water is requesting is easements over the Armel Elementary School property and the transportation facility property. We have a handful of slides here in this presentation that will allow Frederick Water to talk through their request and to talk through the project as a whole, so you can kind of understand why they're requesting this from us. And without further ado, the folks from Frederick Water are Eric Lawrence and Jamie McFadden, and I will turn the podium over to them.
Great. Thanks, Wayne. Hello. I'm Eric Lawrence with the Frederick Water, Executive Director there. And this is a key project that we've been working on for a couple years. It's a almost 30,000 linear foot force main. And you're at the finish line because you're right next to the wastewater treatment plant that we're trying to get to. So we're going to be taking the project all the way from Lake Frederick, and it's going to snake its way all the way up parallel. It's not on 522, but basically running with 522 until it gets to your property here. When we get to your property, we're going to be on the Petrie property, which is immediately south of you. But we are asking for a construction easement along your access road there. And then as it enters the transportation site, we've worked with your staff since May, actually, to make sure that we recognize what's happening out there. So we have avoided what's your planned parent drop-off for the elementary school, so we've moved the force main over. We've also are going to do a no-cut, so we're going to bore under the driveway so we don't interrupt your traffic there. Discussions with your staff suggest that we shouldn't be doing any construction during the school year, which we recognize. So it'll be a June, July target to get across the road and across your property. And then it's a 30-foot easement, so it'll shoot up I guess that's the western property line on the transportation, and then drop into a manhole that we own going down the hill. So it's a significant project. It's over a $20 million project, so you're at the bitter end of it. And we're in the process of acquiring all the easements from close to 29 properties right now. Let's see, I'm trying to, some of the questions that have come up, we've done studies. We have to adhere to a lot of different federal requirements. So we've done bat studies, and what we found, which is a positive thing, there's only 2 bats that are concerned, and they're not anywhere on our study corridor. What we did find in not in your area, but we did find some tricolored bats, but they're not on the school property. They're the southern end of our study area. So we didn't have any bat issues when we did our study out here. That said, we're certainly going to be cautious. We've already talked to some tree companies. So as we acquire easements, we're going to cut the trees down simply because if another endangered species appears that we weren't aware of, we want to make sure that we've got the trees out of the way so we don't disturb their habitat. And our target is to have this project under construction by July 1st. So we either get the trees out of the way now, we hope that we don't have a prohibition in the summertime, or we have to wait till fall. So that's sort of our strategy, make sure we're recognizing what endangered species are out there, things that we haven't found but might show up. We want to be prepared for it. Any questions that I may help you understand? We are looking for a permanent easement of 30-foot wide on the transportation site, and then there's 10-foot construction easements on either side of the project.
I just have a history question. So I grew up on Airport Road, so just one road over from the Parkins Mill Road, this facility that you guys are trying to access or need to access.
Yes.
Way back in the day, and we're talking 30 years ago, that was a temporary waste facility. and here we are, it's still here. Are there plans to expand that facility?
Yeah, it's
Hence the extra line?
It's
Okay.
it's a 5 million gallon facility. It's half an operation. We got about 2.5 million gallons going through it right now. But in the 20-year vision for this community, based on the growth we have, that facility will be expanded up to 10 million gallons, 11 million gallons. That's not today's project, but that's one reason we're redirecting all the flows to it and getting ready for the future. This particular flow, it's unfortunate, but the plant in Lake Frederick, EPA told us we have to shut it down. So this project is to replace the wastewater plant at Lake Frederick, becomes a pump station, and it pushes it all up to Parkins Mill.
That was my next question. Okay, thank you for answering that. Okay. Interesting. Thank you.
All right, just a couple questions. So you guys are directional drilling underneath that road coming into the transportation facility. How long of a process does that usually take?
Oh,
It should be a day, 2 days.
yeah, within the Monday through Friday, it should be less than a week to drill the hole. We'll drill a hole, we'll put a steel casing in, and then you just slide the
pipe
in.
through.
Yep.
Okay, and my next question would be, that's going to be a lot of pipe right there. Where are you guys staging equipment and material?
Yep. From a design perspective, we're not touching that. Once we hire a contractor, because of the length of the project, he's going to have to communicate with all the property owners and figure out what best works for him. And if he feels something on your site is attractive for him, he'll be reaching back to you. We have found that Frederick Water doesn't want to negotiate those spots because when the contractor shows up, he goes, I don't like that spot, I want it to be over here. So we said, we'll stay out of it.
That's fair enough. Then at the end of it, who would be responsible for anything that gets torn up, say roadways, moving in equipment in and out, or say right there to the, I guess that'd be to the east on our transportation property. There's that swath of land right there, or I know it'd be the summertime, won't have too many folks over there. We will still have some buses in and out or some folks accessing that road. There's also that front parking lot. I'm just kind of trying to want the public to know who would be accountable for any kind of repairs or fixing up any of that property.
Certainly. Obviously, when the contractor's out there, he's going to be having good open communication with the property owners. But if you ever have something that happens and you don't like the response from him, definitely contact us. We're here all the time. So when he's done, it's going to be a 1.5-year project. So when he's done with the project, we're going to have communication with them. So if something has to get repaired, it'll get repaired.
Yep. Yeah, I know those bats. We had to deal with that with one of the electrical contractors that was out here. Yeah, definitely. This would be bat season as far as taking down trees before they migrate. So yeah, I'm thinking you guys came with a good plan here. I would suggest that we'd move this to the full board for approval. We'll go do that at the end, but yeah, it looks good. I appreciate the plan, and thank you for coming out.
I appreciate your time.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your presentation and for your partnership with us. And thank you, Mr. Lee, for the opportunity we had to hear from you. All right, at this time, I'll have Mr. Kenny come up and provide an update for us regarding Indian Hollow Elementary and also James Wood High School, and then lead us into our presentation around the process for acquiring our work.
All righty. Dr. Hummer, Mr. Chairman, school board members and committee members, welcome. Brief update, Indian Hollow. There's, as you see, we put a little text in the thing. As of January 31st, we received all our final building inspections and fire marshal inspections, so everything is wrapped up on that construction side. What we're in now is training. We're videotaping the training of the different systems we put in. Could be everything from the BAS to access control, things like that, the work that we did. So we're working to try to schedule those things as time allows and accessibility to the school right now. So we're in that training and commissioning stage along with the final documentation phase. That will continue on probably right now. That usually is about a 6-week process, so I'd say maybe by the end of March we should be wrapped up with that. Got a few odds and ends, little sideline projects that we're looking at. But other than that, we're wrapped up. It looks good. We was out there today, and everybody seems to be pretty happy. So it was a good project for there. Jameswood High School, we'll roll right into that. If you drove down the road, you would say, well, they're done with the project, but the core of that building is still continuing on. And we was out there today, the construction of the gym concourse, addition, cafeteria, media center, those type of areas there. We got some slides coming up here. So this here is an updated photo. This is the gym, the new concourse, the new loading dock area, as you see. To orientate you, that's the admin office to the right of the photo. To the left down there is our modular classroom community down there. Access road in the front. You're seeing the new gym addition taking shape now. As of today, the roof trusses are on. A lot of that scaffolding is down. The roof trusses are on. The plywood's on the roof. You'll have the same facade look that you have at the main entry of the school. Down there to the right in that little corner there, that roof is on. Since these photos were taken last week, that is where you walk in coolers, the back loading dock, back a kitchen, things like that. And so you kind of get a feel for where you're at on the site. But when this scaffolding is all down, this is the new entry going into the gym. The lower left-hand area is the new restroom area, ADA accessibility, things like that to get into the building. This continues on. Those areas we looked at right beside of where we're going into the loading dock, this is kind of like the cavern we call it there, but these double T's you see on the right-hand picture need to be removed. That's one of the next processes we're undertaking now. What you're seeing there is a little farther away picture and the same view just up closer there. This area is where the main thrust of the people will come in when they come in to go to basketball games, gym, things like that, to enter that inner core of the building. They'll go through the Hall of Fame wing that we just seen there, that gym addition there. So just so you know some of the severity of the involvement of the demolition there. These pictures here show the media area. I'm standing up on the second level taking these pictures. You're starting to see now the daylighting, the exposed beams. Those were the original beams to the school. They were left in place. You're seeing the upper level mezzanine to go around. Those classrooms you're seeing now being formed and framed in. So all this has taken a major transformation there. So it's quite exciting. We got some daylighting, got some light monitors go in on top. Okay. There's some of the light monitors that I wanted to capture this picture of. You'll see some bar joists there. Those will stay in. That gives that industrial look. This gets daylighting into the dining area on that photo on the right. This here was the old admin offices at one time, is what these was. Then you're seeing some second level classrooms of that media area that we have there. There's openings you see there, those windows are being installed now, so you got storefront glass going in there, so that introduces that daylighting from those light monitors that we have in those areas there into those classrooms, which is one of the main design features of the renovation. Is that it on that? I'm sorry. That was it on the James Wood project, if everybody understands that. Has anybody got any questions on that? Mr.
Klein, anything?
Just one quick question. Perhaps it's a memory refresh for me. I think this was covered way back in the beginning of my tenure. But once this is complete, this will accommodate how many more students? How much breathing room will this give us at James Wood?
Usually the student guy's the one that was up here prior to me, but I'll try to do the best. I'll defer over to Mr. Goodwin or Wayne, but I think it's in the vicinity of 240 some odd students. I'll have him come up and answer the student capacity one.
The current capacity is 1283, and once we're completely done, the capacity will be 1527.
Excellent. Thank you.
I will never forget that again. Sorry. Okay. Anything, Mr. Atkins?
So two things that I have. One, removal of the double Ts.
Yes, sir.
We do a lot of precast projects where I'm at, and those double Ts, being as a structural member, how close will students be to that activity?
We're planning those. There will be none, hopefully. That's when we don't work around that. Some of that will take place if they can get the shoring in place, and they'll be over spring break is when we should try to be unoccupied, or they'll be done at night.
Okay.
there. So we try to have that. Those walls to the gym there are going to be shored up, and then also there's a temporary wall there. So we'll do that off hours, so they'll have no students in those areas.
Are they digging out the lifters and cutting the wells to pull out the double T's in one spot, or are they going to cut them out?
Unfortunately, they did this in the stack type of construction, so they built the first floor walls,
Yep.
set them on top of it, built the bearing walls up on top. So these have to be shored up, cut on either end, and
No
lowered down,
pockets, huh?
lowered down out of there. So it's going to be a very tedious process on that.
Okay. Totally understand that. And I'm glad you guys are trying to schedule that for the week
Yes.
of spring break. Student safety is probably our utmost concern.
We talked to Mr. Gross and see if we could get a week early, and then in the week of, that's what we're going to try to do.
Definitely crane setup, the
Yep.
whole 9 yards. And then my last, more of a comment, I think it's looking great out there. You guys are doing a bang-up job. For me, looking at that media space, like I said, it's beautiful, but that's unoccupied space that we could have built classrooms, and I know that we're, hopeful for a fourth high school on this board, but stuff like that, I would hope that in future projects, we could use that negative space as classroom spaces. To Ms. Klein's point, we have an overcrowding issue, and we're trying to pack as many students as we can in safe spaces to learn. I'd hope in future projects that we would look at spaces like this, not to be as aesthetically pleasing, but to be more learning conducive. That's all I would have about that, though.
Okay. Well, I think obviously it was a dungeon. Those lower floors was cavern, they were very dungeony down there. We was trying to get natural lighting in. I think there's a lot of studies that show the natural lighting improves grade scores and things like that. So it was a tough one. It's a tough call there. And so I think that we were trying to induce the daylighting in there to learn help with the learning experience and help with the better behavior on things like that. So, but point taken, understand, 100%. Okay,
Thank you.
all right. So, Mr. Goodwin, do you want me to go right into or do you have more?
That
was
would be
it? Okay.
that would be perfect. If you'd please introduce our guests from RRMM, and I do just want to say thank you to both of you for being here tonight to talk about project delivery methods. We're excited to hear what you have to say. So if you'll
right.
introduce them, please, Mr. Kenny.
Again, board members, we were asked and tasked with Dr. Hummer to come up with a presentation to give a different delivery process that are currently approved in the state of Virginia. Being that we have our task order contract that we have with RRMM, the architects, who also was awarded the contract for the school with James Wood in Indian Hollow. So we asked them to put together a delivery presentation. They did this numerous times throughout the state. There are many locations they have. I lose track if I came up with all the different projects they've did over the years. But I have here with Michael Macheri is the architect on this project, lead architect for James Wood High School, and with him in tow is Mr. Ben Motley, the chairman of the board of RRMM, and who was also one of the driving design entities and ideas of this project. So I turn it over to Michael.
Thanks, Kevin. Good evening, Dr. Hummer, Chair, and members of the board. It's great to be back here. As Kevin has mentioned, I'm project architect of James Wood High School. It was and is a construction management at-risk delivery. Over the last 5-6 years, we've been able to serve Frederick County schools through construction management at risk with Ayler Middle School, Indian Hollow, and James Wood High School. Ben and I have been, very fortunate to be part of that process, and we wanted to take the time now to kind of talk holistically about all of the project delivery methods, and we'll hit on construction management at risk because it is most recent and currently part of James Wood High School. So kind of a brief look here at an agenda. We'll give a brief history of Frederick County Public Schools and where have you been in the procurement stage of doing projects. Hit on the 4 project delivery methods that are available for Virginia Public Schools. And then hit on construction management at risk in a little more detail with the design overview of James Wood High School and some lessons learned and things like that. So brief history. Frederick County Public Schools, one of the, overall, Virginia is very progressive in terms of giving schools the opportunity to procure public work. And in 2017, it became legal for schools to be able to use construction management at risk. And Frederick County was one of the first ones to implement that. Taking a look at the 4 possible construction delivery methods, you have the traditional design bid build we'll look at. We'll look at design build, which is also part of that 2017 law that came in for schools to use. And then a PPEA, Public-Private Education Act, that's been around since 2002. So it's been around quite a bit. And it is a design build contract. And then there's the construction management at risk. We'll focus on the construction manager at risk as opposed to agency, as there's another subset to that with construction manager when an advisor or agent isn't directly tied to the financial aspects that a CM at risk would have. So I know this is a little blurry, but I just wanted to hit on these 3 looking horizontally. So design bid build, construction management at risk, design and design bid. If we look at just the left side, the beginning of a project, the similarities between design bid build and construction manager at risk are you select an architect designer first. That contract exists just with between the school and the A&E. So we're brought on early. Design build is going to be one contract with contractor, and there's a little bit more time in that upfront to actually make that award and selection. What's key here on the design bid build, if you look at where the green is, once you get a contractor on board, it's much longer along the path in the journey of procurement there. And if I were to have a graphic here, I would highlight that and say it's selected on low bid. So while the other procurement processes give you the ability to select on reputation, trust, quality, those are what the alternative delivery methods bring that the traditional design bid build does not. Looking at these other 2, CM at risk, design build, there's the ability to fast track the project, so you're able to have design packages in construction kind of taking place while the later stages of design are occurring. And within that, you're getting a GMP, which is a guaranteed maximum price. So with those alternative delivery methods, you're actually looking toward the end here, where it's pointing out CM/GC time savings, design build time savings, a shorter window for completion as opposed to the traditional model. So if we focus in on design bid build, 2 separate contracts shown in this graph. Owner and architect have theirs. Owner and contractor have theirs. It's a linear process. We design, we bid it out, low bid wins in public work. Some of the advantages, architects, we're under contract with the owner. We control our timeline all the way through. And GCs are bidding with 100% construction documents. You can include additive, deductive alternates, and you do get a competitive bidding process with that. Now, highlighted in red, and what you see on these next slides, like this one, more of the considerations and drawbacks to this. The low bid is what will win the contract here in this traditional model. And then you have the risk of change orders throughout that process, and that you have to be careful in the beginning parts to adequately define your contingency that the owner has. You have a set budget, and with a poor GC, you can see quite a bit on the change order side. And then what's key here too, minimal input from contractor during design. Typically there's not a lot of interface there. It can happen, and it does happen, especially if we need to look at things like a major renovation and we want to discuss the phasing involved, we might solicit some input from GCs. Not listed here, but also to add, I'd say that looking at what could be vulnerable is the schedule in this more so than any other, because with the change orders that might come and trying to stick to construction schedule, this one is actually very vulnerable to, a prolonged finish. Okay, so here we're combining both design, build, and PPEA, Public-Private Education Act, in this slide. So real quick, the difference between the design, build, and say the PPA is the PPA offers some of the private financial avenues that you might not get in a traditional design build. And it also may be property deals, land purchasing that a team will bring that a traditional design build contract will not have. Those are essentially, the pros and cons are still the same. That's why we've kind of combined them here. So one contract, that's a big plus here. You have, owner has one contract with the private entity, and they are the design builder entity. Considerations kind of written there in red is the architect works for the contractor. So inherently there could be some confusion. Who is the contractor answering to versus, during design, the architect takes a lead role. And you got, it's a balancing act between understanding who's in charge and always communicating that throughout that process. Multiple phases is a consideration in this. In a PPA, you can either have unsolicited or solicited proposals. That is that the governing body, school board, has adopted guidelines for that to exist. If you do an unsolicited, say a team is, it has to be a major advantage for teams to take that type of investment to do an unsolicited proposal. The school board can then determine if they accept it or accept it with some revisions or reject it. And if you accept it, then you would start hitting these multiple phases. You open it up for competitive concept in detail phases, and those can last several months. But you do get, here's a plus, you get the construction expertise and pricing early in the project. Here, we're the best value, the reputation, it matters, not awarded on low bid. And then once a team is selected, you have to go through interim and comprehensive agreements. And those do take quite a bit of time and review and negotiations. But it's a highly collaborative process, too. You have a GC on board early that's giving you pre-construction services along the way. They have a GMP, guaranteed maximum price, that's part of that proposal. It may lack some competitive bidding in some of these subcontracts, so you have to be aware of that. And then what's also a key takeaway of this is, and it is an important expense to be aware of, the third-party review that is bringing in to support the schools is separate than this design builder team. So they will help with the contract negotiations, and they will provide those reviews of contract documents throughout the way and be an agent to the owner. Construction management at risk. So architect still has contract alone with the owner separate. And then we start to go through a competitive process to hire a separate CM. And that's really based on qualifications. So in reputation, and the architect can help along the way, if requested, to be part of an interview process, evaluate proposals. So in this, again, not awarded on low bid. Cost is a factor, though. In order for a CM to qualify to be hired, they have to submit a CM price proposal. So that includes their pre-construction fees, their construction fees, and that's a fixed amount that they give relative to this project's total budget. So with that, you have the ability to get a guaranteed maximum price contract. It will involve competitive bidding throughout. That is state requirement. 90% of the work has to be produced by subs to be competitive. Only 10% can be performed by self-performing work by the CM. Some other considerations down here in red. Project success highly dependent on the CM selected. It is I think James Wood High School would be a good example of having an experienced CM that is brought on early to understand in this market material and equipment delivery schedules. How are we phasing this building in a complex project? That is one of the determining criteria for a school board to say a project is eligible for CM at risk. You have to determine that there's a complexity involved, and there's also an architect has to give a recommendation in writing that this project is recommended for CM at risk. Also, defining a CM contingency. Once that's part of the GMP, guaranteed maximum price. So if that's used up, you're protected by the guaranteed maximum price. There's really no change orders, only if there's a change of scope. So there can be requested changes by the owner or things that might come up that are true change orders, but overall you're working to manage that CM contingency throughout construction. It's defined early in design because you're locking in a GMP on incomplete set of documents, and that percentage will start to drop toward the end of construction documents being delivered, and then that's carried through construction. Just hit on some of these, when to consider using it. If you have an extreme construction cost limitation and budget, there's a complexity involved. You're on a project timeline. It's critical to define when the start and finishes are. You want to understand when summer work begins. These are the type of things that are considered in the project phasing and considerations using CM. Necessity of value engineering. That is just a process where we're able to look at kind of reducing cost, and that is defined early in the project, the design. Quality control or vendor pre-qualification. So just another mechanism along the way of using CMAR. Some of the challenges of when using construction management at risk, we have being aware of Virginia code, as we know in this case, you all have been at the forefront of adopting those guidelines in procuring projects through CM at risk. The construction supervisor, in addition to a typical clerk of the works, very fortunate here to say Kevin Kenny, Wayne Lee, these are experts at what they do. Having them employed with the schools to manage this process, it's very important to have someone that's able to do that during the entire design through construction. Significant time investment pre-construction phase. So where a traditional model might just be architect, design follows a 12-month schedule or whatever it might be, in this phase with construction management at risk or PPEA, that pre-construction phase gets a little more rigorous. There's just a lot of time and effort and collaboration to both the design that needs to be progressing and then continually looking at the cost and things like just dealing with procurement of products and materials. All of that is significant time investment before construction. Establishing scope of work, establishing the GMP as we've discussed, and then just mentioning that this is a relatively new process for public schools. And then, of course, the big thing that is a responsibility of the architect and engineers, the design decisions must be accelerated and made quickly. Just to hit on a few things from James Wood High School, RMM had evaluated an initial study, and we essentially went from there and said, yes, this would absolutely be a project with its complexity, intricate phasing to be eligible for CM at risk. Schematic design is a crucial step where you establish that initial GMP, and that process defines your scope of the work. And that could take a longer duration for schematic design, but the key here is the final GMP can exceed the initial GMP, so really holding the CM accountable for that along the way, but also making sure that schematic design is robust and detailed enough so that contractors can, assign a GMP. In this case, we had several months of going through a schematic design to make sure it was a rigorous process and there was enough content. Fast-track design process, as we talked about, being able to have some separate documents, civil, structural, get construction started early. MED is material and equipment delivery schedules. Such an important component to CM at risk, and also design build, if we're through PPA, this is a living, breathing document that the contractor is aware of where they have delays in materials, equipment, that kind of thing. So that's a plus that you would see on CM at risk or PPA design build that you don't necessarily get with the traditional design bid build, because waiting 46 weeks for a rooftop unit, or knowing when switchgear for electrical is coming in after 18 months. All of the considerations were identified early at James Wood High School with the CM, and that was a living, breathing document that we're always looking at to help influence the phasing plan. So that's another important component here. The phasing, it has gone well. Lessons learned from that, maybe we bit off a little more than we could chew on some of the areas where the CM would need more time. Being aware of operations, say it's summer and we need to keep HVAC on while major electrical was getting replaced, making sure that's communicated from the CM to the owner. But also knowing there's provisions in the cost for that temporary power. Those are the type of things that we've learned here. So I think that concludes my part, unless there's any question. Yeah.
Back you up just a little bit there. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Ben. Of course, we got time for questions, but we're just doing a brief summary here of where we stand, no matter what method is selected, as you can read here. There's a process we all follow to choose not only the CM, but also the architectural and engineering firm. We work with our procurement staff here in-house. There's a committee established for both the CM and the A&E firm. Those staff members here come from our instructional side. They come from our administrative side. We bring them in from all areas of the school departments here, so you can see there. So it's quite a group. I think Ayler project, we had 12, 14 people on some of those committees, and we whittled it down when we got to James Wood. I don't know which one is it, the right one?
Right one.
Some of this gets a little repetitive. Some of the things that Michael has just went over, the requests for proposals are advertised. The RFPs go out. We have those go out for A&E firms, and we also put them out for our CM firms when we're doing that process. But we also, it's no different than what you do for any project we put out. Firms submit their resumes. We evaluate the applicants. They've also bid on general conditions, as Michael has said, those things there. So we actually look at the low bid of those and the fees and those things. It's quite complex. We have our procurement staff sets us up with evaluation forms, keeps us on so the state regs we go by to do that. We do get down to finalists for both the firms, A&E and for the CM. They're brought in for interviews, and the CM firms are selected with the RFQ. They have to be qualified, as Michael has also said. So it's quite a complex and rigorous vetting to get to those first 90, 120 days. And we do the interviews, and the CM firms that said how they want to do the project, something as simple as that, how they do the phasing. We make them present those things, how we do the staging. You know, if you looked at somewhere in one of our future projects, you got to look at where the construction staging was at, how's it interact with students and things like that. So we evaluate how our CM may present that. So, but at the end of the process, the committee selects the firm, and that we start on design of the project and work with the budget we have. So it's quite a complex process to build any project out here that we have, but it's a team effort. It's a team effort from everyone in this building, CM, A&Es, everyone involved, and our subcontractors. So at this time, I think we got a little time for questions. I'm sure if anybody has any questions for either Mr. Macheri or Mr. Motley or myself or anyone.
Mr. Chair, I do. So thank you all so much for your time. This is not, I am not a construction person in my daily life, so having this explanation is very helpful, and as a result, I do have some questions. So regarding the vendor pre-qualification, is that merely a presentation of, here's your portfolio of projects, here's the portfolio of projects that we have done, here's our licensure? Is that what that is? What all is involved in that? Can you expound upon that?
Michael, you can come back up, or Ben, either one. Ben, maybe you want to give Michael a break? Ben Motley here, he's one of the driving forces here we've had. If you want to take that.
Yeah, so first of all, it might be helpful to know that our firm has had a lot of experience with every one of these project delivery methods. So it depends on, in terms of vendor qualifications. So there's the architect, and then there's the builder. We've been using the term construction manager. So they're typically separate, or often separate. When it comes to the architectural process, unless it's a design-build project where the hyphen means there's a combined team that's doing both the design and construction, by law, you are required to issue an RFP for the architect, and you then have a process where you'll interview several architectural firms, architectural and engineering firms. And by law, you are not allowed to bid professional services. So you must select them based on qualifications. So generally, it's a request for a proposal based on their qualifications, and then you interview them and select the one that's best for the job. Now, when it comes to the build side of the equation, well, depending on which procurement method it is, if it's the traditional design, bid, build, and here the hyphens are referring to a chronology of events. You design it first, then you publicly bid it, and then you build it. That has to be by lowest price. Now, depending on the other three methods, if you're doing construction management at risk, there's a two-stage process. First, you actually issue what's called a request for qualifications. And firms then really respond to their experience and qualifications and their team. And that you even have certain time limits that has to occur in. Then you shortlist, and then you actually ask for more specific proposals that involve things like their cost and their approach to the project. Now, I hope that answer is not too long, but almost this whole topic of which construction delivery method you choose, it is a complex topic. So it's okay if you have to kind of keep asking questions about the pros and cons.
Great, thank you. I have a few more, but I want to give opportunities.
Go ahead. No, keep going.
Okay,
I'll
okay.
get mine at the end.
Sir, you mentioned what does an architect look for? I'm curious, what does an architect look for to qualify a project for CMAR? You said that there's certain qualifications for the project to be managed that way. Can you expound upon that?
So from a state side, they actually quantify it as first with just cost, $26 million. Now, there's some avenues with local governing bodies that don't have to adhere to that, but they have to define a level of complexity involved with the project. So Indian Hollow, James Wood High School, occupied sites, complex renovations, that would be eligible and recommended for CM at risk.
Got it. Excellent, thank you. Kind of additional question for CMAR, apologies. Is there a guaranteed max price with CMAR?
Yes,
There is, okay.
that's
all I have.
determined early in schematic design, and then there'll be a final GMP delivered after design development. So, and they're held to that. Even through construction documents, they have a contingency that's worked within that, and they have to adhere to it.
Excellent, thank you.
You're welcome.
Right. Couple questions that I have, and a couple comments. One, bang-up job out there at James Wood. One of the things, being in construction, that I look at is the materials and delivery, of equipment and whatever. The MED schedule. We didn't have a lot of stuff sitting out there, getting in the way of traffic, getting in the way of student activities. Hats off to you. Hats off to Mr. Kenny out there for getting all that stuff done. Branch, I believe, was the GC out there. There are a couple other things, and I think it's been a concern for a lot of members on this board and a lot of community members as well. I think it goes to say that we don't necessarily like the lowest bid. I think that's gotten us into some trouble in the past, and we're doing a lot of warranty work. We're doing, renovations or repairs when we shouldn't have to. It's coming a little bit early. So one of the other questions that I had was selection of the GC. How do you guys go about selecting your GC? I know there's a lot of GCs out there who do specialize in schools and other construction type projects. How do you guys go through that? What's that process look like?
Depends on which one it is,
You-
too, other processes.
Right.
Understood.
For construction management at risk, we would refer to a typical GC as a CM. But in the traditional model, design, bid, build, the GC that has met a bonding requirement on bid day, and they're the low bid, they will be awarded. It's very rare, if I haven't been part of a design bid build where that has not happened, where the low bid gets disqualified. So, that for a traditional, now GC on a design build, like a PPEA, that goes through that rigorous process of concept, detailed phase, and a committee is evaluating that proposal along the way. So it's not based off of low price, it's based off of best value, qualifications, and a variety of factors. They're looking at the approach to the project. Certainly there's a cost to it, but what we're seeing even on PPAs that we've been a part of is the design was one of the most important factors in the selection. And so, in terms of selection, we've heard that factors in quite a bit in terms of the selection of a team in a PPA is the design.
And, talking to community members, stakeholders within the community and school administration, some of the priorities that we've had obviously is delivering what we need. We talk about needs-based budget, our need to educate children, and second to that would be cost. Obviously, we're beholden to what the county gives us, what the taxpayers are willing to put out, because obviously we're pretty much reaching into their pockets to pull out the money for this. So with that'd be my priorities. We want to get what we're asking for, second to cost. We don't want it to come in and get the lowest bid just because they're going to put something together, and then we've got some substandard products. However, one of my concerns that we've seen in the past is like at Ayler. With Ayler, we were told we were going to get so many students in that building, and then through the CMAR process, it got changed around, and we're at the same capacity as the old Ayler. I'm just trying to figure out what's the best way to avoid that misstep. That way we are delivering the product that the community expects. And I know that you've went through and showed the positives and negatives on each of them. I'm trying to get the best out of everything. But is there ways with the CMAR that we can avoid those kind of missteps? I know, like you said, it's a learning process. It's something that's new out here, and Virginia just started allowing that. But how do we go about that?
Well, the programming of a school or future school is the most critical step in kind of forecasting your growth. That has to come from the stakeholders in play, whether it be the board or those that are put in place for that project. I know at Ayler there was those classroom additions that were added on, 4 classrooms on each wing. I actually came into that project during design development, but the selection of a CM, I think, is important as opposed to when comparing to a design bid build, because they're actually weighing in on the design as well, hearing the concerns and the needs of the school as well. So they're understanding the design rationale, as opposed to in a traditional model, they're remote and they're just getting documents at the end. So that's where I think there's still advantages in having the CM on board early in that approach, or the design build approach.
Michael, do you mind if I add
Yeah.
some comments here?
Sure.
Because I was involved in the very beginning of Ayler. I was one of the ones that had to deliver some of the bad news on Ayler. And so in my opinion, that shortage that you're talking about was not related to the process that was chosen. At the very outset, we were given a budget, and with a clear instruction that it will be no more. And so that created that disconnect, that regardless of the process, that you would have had that situation. So the critical thing is making sure when you're doing your budgeting process is you make sure it can handle the size and scope of project that you're really looking for.
Understood. I guess another concern is, being in construction, you see the cost of materials going up all the time. I know it has over the past few years, more so than we've seen in the past 20 years. As far
Crazy.
Yeah, and
Crazy.
availability of materials and everything, COVID, whatever, it played a lot of factors. There's a lot of factors that go into why construction costs have went up. But is there a price lock guarantee in any of these builds where we're putting in metal studs, let's say, just for a number's sake, at $2.50 a foot, and then later on, when everything gets approved, we've already said this is what the price is going to cost, and then now it's at $5 a square or $5 a foot, and it significantly takes down how many walls we can put up, which means how many classrooms we can put in. Is there any way we can lock that in and make sure we are kind of getting the project or the scope of the project that we're asking for?
Well, so any of these these alternative project delivery methods, other than the traditional design bid build, give you the opportunity for an earlier price commitment. So that is the advantage of one of the advantages of these alternative methods. Now, whenever you're transferring risk, there's a cost to transferring that risk, right? You're asking the construction manager to guarantee a price. So, but that is one of the main reasons that we would say in today's market, which is very volatile, right? That these alternative methods can be a really good friend. Because not only can you do things like get an earlier price, but there's also these issues of even ordering certain materials and certain equipment that has to be done much earlier. You're able to collaboratively deal with all these dynamics when you get the contractor on board early. I hope that's a helpful answer.
It is, and I know that, looking at some of the graphs that were up earlier about the timelines that were up there between design, bid, build, CMAR, and then just design, build, it shows kind of like the construction process and how we can deliver a product a little bit faster, right? One of the things I see it when I'm out here working in Northern Virginia is a lot of precast projects. Now, I understand everybody thinks, yeah, you just stack a couple rocks together and you've got a building. But there is a process to that as far as, getting the materials ordered. It has to meet the architect's specifications, and it has to be, conducive to what we want in a school. But using those kind of materials, how does that process speed up versus your traditional brick and mortar?
Oh, that's a really good point to raise. And there's so many things we could cover, but the ability to do early packages on the critical path, right? You mentioned precast concrete structure essentially, right? Well, I mean, both Ayler Middle School and James Wood were done with early foundation and steel packages, which and early site work, which made a huge difference in the whole total project delivery. And the fact that you're doing more detailed packages earlier, you lock in more solid price commitments earlier and scope of work commitments earlier. So you're just highlighting another advantage of these alternative methods.
And during the CM process, for instance, at James Wood, we would discuss with the CM if we did tilt-up walls versus brick and mortar and stud backup, and we'd have those conversations as it reflected with the schedule. And what we found was it wasn't saving a lot of time. And then there's the site restrictions of how you do the tilt-up. So again, though, the construction systems to be used while balancing with the budget and the schedule, those are the conversations you can have in these alternative delivery methods early.
With the CM, who has more expertise in these questions than we do.
Yeah.
Right, staging, delivery, timing, cost.
Understood. Yeah, we definitely don't have a lot of room over at James Wood to be doing the pouring or the cast in place, tilt ups. Yeah, that's a limited site, and you guys have done a fantastic job. To everybody involved with that. I guess, are we looking at? I keep going to the fourth high school because that's the big thing on our minds, at least. With that space out there, I mean, we're not to the design process yet, but I mean, that would be something we would be wanting to look at. I'm not saying go precast or anything like that. I'm just thinking of faster methods of, the kind of construction I'm in. And the last part, I'm not trying to undercut anybody, but this is, I guess, for Mr. Kinney. How do we go about selecting our architects?
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate that.
I mean, they're part of the process, is why I'm asking.
They're part of the process. It's an interview process. We put out an RFP for firms. I believe on the Ayler project, and we didn't have as many on the James Wood and Indian Hollow project because of the complexity and the architect's familiar, if that's in their wheelhouse, so to speak. Ayler, we had about 14 firms apply. So you go through a process. You interview other school districts that they've worked for. There's a process you go through. That's what the committee does, and then we get down to working with our procurement staff. So it's a process that you go through to get to whittle them down to see they submit the type of projects they did that's similar to these that we're looking at, things like that. So you go through there, look at their qualifications and what have you, size of staff, how they located, how far away they travel, things like that. All factor into it because these are long processes. So it's the same as your CM. CM is actually bidding on their services, though. They're there, so it's a little different. These guys are visual on their qualifications of prior projects, things like that, to do that interview process. So it's a all hands on deck. Everybody's looking at it. We're looking at it from the instructional side. We're looking at it from the construction side. We're looking at it from everywhere, different ones, and our stakeholders.
And I guess my final question, sorry to belabor everything today, just a lot of information. We got the subject matter experts here. Say downtown comes back, we get approved for a fourth high school. How soon do we start that process as far as selecting our bidding process for design, bid, build, CMAR, all the way down? And then how fast could we start? I'm not saying, stuff out of the ground, but, actually getting started with, designing, everything like that, the process of looking for the architect, because that seems to me to be the first step.
Right, it is the first step. That process, we get advertised. There's a due diligence that has to be there. It's on the street. Procurement works with us out of finance. They're on the street for 30 to 45 days or something like that. Depends on what have you. We get those back. We usually can turn around and have the interview process, about a 90-day process to get the A&E firm on. Then you start that process. We had our MM work with us on selecting CM, so they're on that committee that also is part of the selection of that. So then your next step is to put that out. Of course, we got to get a contract signed with the A&E firm, and that's a negotiation process. I'm the keeper of the gate, so to speak. So when you was asking the earlier question about change of scope and reduce the scope because of price increases, once we hit that GMP, it's too bad about your bad luck.
Yep.
We'll all work together. We'll try to get to the end, but we don't change. We don't reduce scope because of price escalations anywhere. And so we negotiate all that up front. So there's different things, criteria, how you select your CM. They submit their qualifications. They also submit how they propose to do the project, things like that. They are also negotiating. Some want to share in any savings, and we don't do that. So we're looking at, I'm a taxpaying citizen of Frederick County my entire life. I'm going to give the best bang for the buck for everybody here. So we believe what process that will be, but we have a lot of people that come in to make this up before it gets started. Then we turn it over to even more people behind the scenes that get a school designed. So I'd say, to answer your question, about 90 to 120 days for high school. Ayler is a good example. We hit schematic design, we hit some early packages. Those early packages are critical because you get your land disturbance, you can get your site, you get your earthwork moving. And then within a year process, we had footers going in the ground at Ayler up there. From the time that we selected our A&E firm to the time we had footers in the ground was just a little less than a year up there because we had early steel. Your structural steel is a very crucial package. So that's why this process works, because everybody's collaborating together, which is something we teach in our schools is collaboration. We do the same thing in this process. It's a very big collaboration. That's what it is.
Good deal. Thank you. So we should have a school up by 2026?
No, sir. I can't have one up by 2026. Sorry.
I'm holding you to it. All right.
Anything else, sir?
Nope. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you all. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Kenny. Thank you to our partners from RRMM for your excellent presentation and question and answer time. I appreciate that very much. All right, our final agenda item for the evening is weapons detection systems. We'd like to talk with you about a pilot program. I'd like to invite Mr. Conlon to come up, our Safety and Security Administrator. We also have, I believe, Lieutenant Cornwell here as our friend and our guest who has accompanied Mr. Conlon on a number of trips, I know, to explore this possibility. So thank you and welcome to you both. Thank you, Mr. Conlon.
Chairman Atkins, Madam Committee Member, Board members. Today we're going to talk about the CHIA weapons detection system. For us, it's going to be a security enhancement. We're looking at the number of school shootings across this country since 2000. We're looking at approximately 800 shootings. In 2022, there was 46 alone. We haven't had any specific incidents that has driven us to this. We're trying to be proactive in our approach. I'm a firm believer, and the administration in this school system are firm believers in that we need to be out in front of this rather than behind it. Why wait until something happens? In front of you is a list of some of our neighboring divisions that are already using these. Most recently, myself and Lieutenant Cornwell and Sergeant Mitchell went and visited Louisa. As of Friday, I also visited it with 3 of our principals from the high schools. Here's Lieutenant Cornwell with the system. This is what it looks like. They can, what you see there pictured are 2 socks or sleeves that go over the unit. They can personalize it to the school to make it a little warmer. If those weren't on there, it's just kind of a gray pole. They're approximately 36 inches apart. Students will walk directly through the center of them. As I said, we visited Louisa County Public Schools. We've already had or started a conversation with our principals, and our goal is to have a pilot program. The system itself is called the Open Gate Weapons Detection System. It's groundbreaking in that it is portable. It can be used inside or outside. Without the battery, it weighs approximately 25 pounds. With the battery, it's 35 pounds, or they can be plugged in. It's a rechargeable Milwaukee battery, just like you use on your home drill or any of your Milwaukee tools, your power tools. They talk about fast flow. Just to give you an idea, Louisa High School has 1,800 students. They get all those students through their system in 15 minutes. That's buses, that's parkers, that's drop-offs. And it really is effortless. So, as I said, you can use it anywhere, indoor, outdoor. If Mr. Goodwin can click on that video for you, we'll see a quick video of just some of the students coming in here. On the left of the system, there's a SSO. Students will come in, they'll hand him their laptop. He holds the laptop on the outside. They walk directly through as long as it doesn't alarm. They proceed, they get their laptop back, and they just proceed on through. If it does alarm, they'll go over to the table to the right of the screen, or to my right, your left, and they'll hand them the backpack. The student will then walk backwards through. They can go right back. It's a unidirectional system, so you can walk through either way. They'll just go back as long as the student doesn't alarm. One of the staff members will look through their backpack to see if there's any weapons in there. As long as there's no weapons, they're handed their backpack and they're on their way. Our goal is to have 2 in each one of our high schools for the pilot program. We're looking at using them in the cafeteria, the auditorium, sporting events, graduation for our pilot program. It says next steps, in-person visit to Louisa County. As I said, I did that Friday with all three high school principals. We had great feedback from our principals. They were really impressed with how well the system works and it integrates with students. Could care less. They don't pay any attention to it. They walk through the center. As long as you they ask that the students hold the backpack in front of them. Like I said, if it alarms, you take your backpack over to the table, you walk back through. The goal would be to purchase the equipment as quickly as it's approved. Again, we're looking at six units, 2 for each school. That will be our proposal to the board. We'll implement a pilot program at the 3 high schools, and then based on that pilot program, we'll collect data and report back. Chaya is the #1 weapons detection system used for our government. You'll find it in all our government buildings, many of our airports. The approximate cost is $17,500. That's a rough number. That's not based on any quotes we've gotten. That's just what they hand out. You know, if you're looking at one, this is what they say. As I said, it's a quick setup. It's just 2 posts. One person can set it up. I don't know, it may take 2 minutes to set them up. It can handle a large crowd with ease. As I said, they got 1,800 students in without any issues in 15 minutes. Depending on the event that you wanted to use it at, let's just say we were playing an outside high school for a football game and someone was worried that there might be a threat. We do have the ability to change the sensitivity levels so that it can catch everything. as it's set up now, it's just set for large weapons, generally handguns. Their claim is that everyday metal objects can pass through. So they say phones, when they say most water bottles, all these kids are carrying Stanleys now, they won't go through. They'll set it off. Same thing with the big, any of the big water bottles. But it has a very low false alarm rate. So we'll be asking that, the superintendent's asking for a full board approval for this pilot program.
Just a quick question.
Sure.
Thank you. I did have one big question about the sensitivity, which you did answer, and I'm curious. They look to be about maybe 6 feet tall, maybe a little taller than 6 feet.
Maybe about 6, yeah.
Okay, so they cover full head to toe, same amount of detection.
Mm-hmm.
Can you target, if you have intel that is a perceived threat, for example, can you dial up the sensitivity on a certain portion
No.
of the body? So it's one sensitivity
So
for the entire
are
length?
there are several other manufacturers that claim that, and they will show where a device is, but they have a much higher alarm rate, and they also cost approximately $120,000 over 4 years. And it's a lease, not an own, and they can't be used indoor or out, and they're not portable.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
All right, so, oh, go ahead.
Now, they come through, they set the thing off, you take the backpack, you have them come through, they set it off again. Are you gonna have like in addition, a hand wand or something to pinpoint where it's going off at?
So Louisa uses hand wands. They would be purchased, if we wanted them, they're additional, where you would want a student. It's not something we've discussed at this point. I think based on the pilot program, we'll make a decision through
'Cause
that.
I guess, coming from a correctional background, kid comes in, sets it off, you can't figure out where it is. Are we patting them down there or hand want it? I'm just curious how that
The goal,
washes
ideally,
out.
from my perspective, would be to hand wand as opposed to putting hands on a student.
If I can also add, Mr. Chair, our schools have a process for students of things they come in that they're looking for. You know, we ask students empty their pockets and things like that, but hands-on is not a practice that we practice. The other thing I would say also is that in collaboration with our law enforcement partners, we want to make it very clear, it's not an SRO that is stationing
Correct.
themselves at these devices. It's one of our school personnel. The only reason we would include or involve anyone from our SRO law enforcement partners is if there was something discovered that would be something that would be considered illegal or something they are not allowed to possess. That would have a legal charge attached to it of some sort or safety concern.
So should something be found during the pilot program? We don't have wands. So then what? What is the protocol?
By something, are you suggesting a firearm or a
Potentially,
weapon?
or a weapon of some
So
form?
if it's a weapon, then immediately law enforcement's notified.
Okay. And then they take it from there?
Once a
Got
weapon,
it.
once it's determined that there's a weapon, it immediately becomes a law enforcement.
So what if they go through and they alarm, and they empty their pockets, we open their bag, still see nothing? They go through and they alarm. Asking because I have had previous experience with this, then what? Then what? Without the wands during the pilot program?
So I think at this point, it's still an ongoing learning process.
Okay.
It's something that we'll have to talk about with Dr. Hummer and Mr. Goodwin and our law enforcement partners.
Okay.
And also, Mr. Chair, if I may, if we need to purchase these wands sooner rather than later, we're going to do that. We're going to start this pilot program, as we mentioned, in after-school activities, probably graduation if we can get these up on time. Of course, the will of the board if this gets approved. If we need to purchase these wands, that's something that we can do. We want to make sure that this doesn't turn into an additional nuisance for our administrators. We're trying to keep our staff and our students safe, and this is something I know gives some of us angst, but it's also, as we mentioned in the preliminary conversation of this presentation, it's a matter of when, and we want to be prepared for the when. So we can definitely order those if we need to, because I agree with you, Mrs. Klein, that this is something that we don't want to, well, now what do we do? Like, we want to be able to address these situations.
I got a couple questions, but I couldn't agree more. I think safety and security of our students is of utmost importance. You know, the public is trusting us with their children, and we're bringing them in. They expect them to come home safely. We have fantastic SROs, and this is another tool that they can help use to keep our kids safe. A couple questions I had. Well, one of the statements is we've already kind of had a slight incident over at Millbrook. We've had a weapon found over there, and this would be something that would help to prevent that instead of through the grapevine and hearing that somebody's got something in their backpack. Does this also detect vapes?
So it can set at the normal setting. It will not. Depending on the size of the vape, it can set it off.
I think
Or
that'd
the
be,
sensitivity.
I think that'd be another thing that helps out with our administration at the schools. Another thing would be, is there grants out there that we can get to help purchase these on down the line? I know safety and security grants are a little bit easier to obtain than some of the other grants that are out there. And I know you've worked hand in hand with trying to get a lot of this stuff done. I just want to know if there's anything on the horizon out there that maybe we can look at.
There's nothing specific for these. We do have a couple of grants right now. We're using them specifically to try and bring uniformity across the division. But certainly as things move forward, we can look into that.
Another question, for multiple points of entry at the schools, if we're setting up, we're getting 6 of these, a set at each school. Are we limiting it to just one point of entry, or are we going to set these up at multiple points of entry at the schools?
So the way I've seen them set up is that there's one unit, so we'd be able to do 2 access points per school initially. Again, this only being a pilot program, based on how the board and the feedback from staff and students, then we can look at doing additional entry points.
And I spoke with Mr. Goodwin about this earlier, but I'm going to ask it so it's public out here. Is there any kind of subscription or anything needed for these? Any kind of software updates that we'll need to purchase in the future?
From what I was told from Chaya is that that'll all be included,
So the all-in for a set at a school would be $17,500.
approximately.
Approximately, yeah. I know it wasn't set in stone, everything's written in clay. But my last question would be actually for Dr. Hummer. Does this need to go to the full board for approval because the cost threshold is below your spending limit?
Great question, Mr. Chair. So you all do not have to approve the cost. However, this is a big decision for our school division. And as I've talked and mentioned, I would like for you all to take this into consideration and approve the concept of doing a pilot, but not necessarily the cost, because I want to make sure that the full board is fully informed in regards to what this is going to look like. This is something that the staff and I believe we need as a school division to continue to work towards keeping everybody 100% safe. So I would say, yes, this does need to go to the full board for approval, but not for the cost.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Hummer. Once again, I think, safety and security of the children at the school is of utmost importance. I think you guys have done a fantastic job of reaching out and finding these. It definitely beats that over $100,000 price tag, and, they're mobile. We can take them down to graduation. We can take them down to football games, baseball games, volleyball games, what have you. And so with that, I would definitely hope that our board would be on board with this. Anything else from anybody?
Mr. Chair, may
Send
I?
it.
Hi, I'm Daryl Bell. I'm a member of the board. I just had a couple of questions, just some informational questions. Is there a warranty on these posts?
I'm sure there is. I'm not specific with their warranty. I will look into it and get back with you.
And if it breaks down, what is the turnaround time for getting it fixed?
Again, I'll have to reach out and get back with you.
Okay. And how long do they last?
I believe they said approximately 5 to 7 years.
And the battery life? I know it's a rechargeable battery, but
They're Milwaukee batteries, so, I've had some that'll last 7, 10 years, and I've had
Yeah.
some that'll last 6 months.
get DeWalt. No, I'm kidding. Let's see. Oh, that's that. The only concern that I have, and I'll share this with the board, is not that we have these. I think it's a certainly a good idea. But my concern is it being manned by staff. This has nothing to do with you. This has to do with how we man these things. So let's say someone comes in with a weapon. We have staff that are untrained in dealing with these types of things, and if the person bringing in the weapon is intended on causing bodily harm or damage to someone or something, I'm not sure having just a staff member there would be proactive. And if we're relying on calling in the SRO officer or the police, there's obviously a lag time between the time they call and the time they show up. So my concern would be for the safety of the staff in those instances, but I understand we can't hire 50 new SRO officers either. So I just wanted to unveil that.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if I may. So yes, and we actually thought through that, Mr. Bell. I really appreciate that question. And I think the one thing to remember is, as Mr. Chair mentioned, this is already happening. Our administrators are the first line of defense when they do find a weapon or hear weapons on a student. Now, of course, we rely on our amazing SROs and our sheriff's office to work through those things. But if we have known or we see that there's a weapon on a student, we act on that. This is just going to be a way for us to be more proactive, that if it does come through the front door, we can act on that. And we did have conversations with our administrators. That's why we sent them down to Louisa. And if there are additional things we need to take into consideration, we will. I know one of the things that we have talked about is maybe more security officers in the building to help man these stations. I think it's definitely something that we're going to have to keep track of with this pilot program. And if there are additional things we need to add on, we definitely will report back to you all. But absolutely, I agree with you. And we definitely don't want this to be one more thing we add on. This is just more of a proactive measure.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Bell.
And Chaya does provide training for our staff members. They will come out upon purchase and show us how everything works and kind of how they suggest everything go.
Mr. Sturdivant?
Not to be a hammerhead, that's not my point here, but you said something that just caught my attention, was this is a learning process. So I just want to make sure that when we're doing this, all avenues have been studied before we implement this thing, because like I said, after 35 years of corrections, I've seen people that, well, we're going to do this, and they don't think of all the contingencies. So I'm hoping that you all are taking in all these considerations. I strongly suggest the hand wands, and I know you say we don't put hands on kids, but if somebody comes through that monitor and you can't figure out why he's beeping it, then somebody's going to have to do something. That's my concern. I mean, sorry.
Right. If I could also respond, we would definitely do something, and there are many avenues of response. We would not send that student on to class and not worry about it. We would take care of that. I also do want to remind the board it's a pilot. So the process of the pilot and the language of learning this is a stepped process. We're going to start with just these 6, if you'll approve it, just these 6 devices, these 6 pairs, have students and families experience them. What do they look like? Where are they? What's it like? How much does it slow us down at our opportunities like graduation, sports events, things like that? And then if the board would like, we can move to the next step, which would also, the pilot does not include putting these at our entrances for students to come into school. That's not part of the pilot that we've talked about. We've talked about the pilot process being sporting events, exterior events for schools, and also graduation. We provide feedback to the board, and we get your permission if you want to move forward, or if you want to stop, or you want to change equipment. There's not going to be a long-term investment without the input that you provide and the permissions that you give.
All right, no more questions? Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to thank my team that came tonight, along with our guests, for your presentations and information. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to the board. And Dr. Hummer, I turn it back over to you now for our last piece of the agenda here, our action items, if are any going to be taken.
Yes, so as we mentioned, Mr. Chair, we have 2 items that are up for consideration to move to the full board for approval. The first is the Frederick Water easement, and then the second is the approval of the weapons detection system pilot. And also, as you mentioned, Mr. Chair, it's not to approve the cost, it's just to approve the pilot program. So thank you for that clarification.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to move the Frederick Water easement proposal to the main board, as well as the weapons detection system pilot program. Or shall I break those into 2 motions? 2 motions?
2, please.
Yep. All right. Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to move the Frederick Water easement to the main board for approval.
Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Moves to the full board.
Mr. Chair, I move to move the Weapons Detection System Pilot Program to the full board for their consideration.
Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes, going to the full board. Last motion.
Anything else? All right. And Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion for adjournment.
Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.